Yeah, good idea.
And so you're doing the poll on that third slide?
We might do the poll as we're waiting for people to join. So I could launch the poll now even. And then the second poll on the third slide, yeah. Welcome, everybody. For those of you who have joined, we're just going to have a little poll while we're waiting for everyone to join and get started. So please fill that in if you have a chance.
Caitlin, before ending the poll, can you please let me know?
Sure, will do. Yeah. You can see the answers, Sarish?
Yes, I can.
So, thanks everyone for filling that in. That's going to help us plan our events and Shazia run today's session. What time do you think we should, do you think 1 more minute and then we'll get going?
Sounds good.
Cool. Yeah, we've still got a fair few people joining.
Maybe a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Seems like people are, maybe like 2 minutes or something.
Yeah. The intro slides for people to kind of come in. I'll keep the poll up until we get to the next one, even though you can hear everyone joining. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today for this lunchtime R Ladies Melbourne meetup. I'd like to first celebrate and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land and waters from where I join you today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging and embrace their continued connection to this place. I pay my respects to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who may be joining us today. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So welcome to our first R Ladies Melbourne meetup. For those of you who aren't so familiar with R Ladies Melbourne, we are a registered non-profit organisation and a local chapter of R Ladies Global. Our aim is to promote gender diversity in the R community, both in Australia and worldwide. And by the looks of the poll, we have a few people, indeed 34% of you are not in Australia at the moment. So welcome and thanks for joining at whatever time zone you might be in. So To start with, we have a new website, so please take a look once it's fully launched. This will be a great repository for you to be able to look at past events, future events, and different resources that we've got there, and for you to be able to connect to all our other platforms that R Ladies Melbourne is active on. We would like to also give you a heads up of our next event, which will be held at the end of this month, where Laura Summers, in conjunction with Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, will give a workshop about the ethics of artificial intelligence. Put this date in your calendar, but more details will be coming very soon. So, Sarish, we might just end the current poll. So for those of you who are interested, we have quite an even split of where I think I can. Sarish, is it all right to end?
Yes, okay,
Great.
okay to end.
So I think you might be able to see the results there. It's quite interesting. We've got 46% from Melbourne, 33% overseas, so that's great. Looks like the lunchtime meetup's quite popular, and we've got quite a diverse range of R Markdown skills here today. So welcome, and I hope you're able to take something away and learn something new. We are just going to do another quick poll. Oh, this one. Don't know how to move on to the next one. Maybe we won't do the next poll, but if you'd like to give a seminar, workshop, short talk, can you please let us know or send any of the people? Oh, there it is.
Did that help?
I won't. Yeah, I'll move that. So if you could fill in this small questionnaire, that would really help us with our planning for 2022. And so we can, and if you're answering yes or maybe, please send us a message so we can stay in touch. So don't forget, you can find us on all these platforms and connect in different ways with resources, other R-related material, etc. So time to move on to why we're all here today. Welcome to Dr. Shazia Ruybal-Pesántez, a postdoctoral research officer and molecular epidemiologist at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute and Burnet Institute in Melbourne, but joining us from Quito today, so not in our 12 p.m. time zone. Really looking forward to hearing this workshop. It is going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so you can catch up on anything you miss along the way. Over to you, Shazia.
Hi, everyone. Yes, definitely joining from different time zone, but looks like some of us are in different places of the world. So thank you for joining, and bear with me while I try and share my screen. How's that?
Looks good.
Right?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm just gonna move this. How do I move this poll? There we go. So today we're gonna be going through how you can automate your CV in R Markdown. And I titled this talk Easy as 1-2 Knit. So I hope by the end of this workshop, you'll agree with me. And I'm going to be going through a couple of packages in R and take you through how to do that with your own CV. A bit about me, Caitlin already introduced me, but I am a postdoc at WEHI in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm also the president of R Ladies Melbourne. So we're really, really happy to have you all here with us today. Feel free to reach out, and if you have any questions, my contact details are there. So first of all, I wanted to just introduce everyone to R Ladies. I don't know if this is your first time that you come to one of our meetups or the 10th, but we welcome you here. And I really love all these illustrations by Alison Horst. If you haven't seen them, the link is there. All my slides are, you can go through the links on all my slides. So I think someone might be able to share the slides on the chat, and you can follow along if you'd like, or just watch the Zoom. So I thought we'd just do a bit of I know you guys just did polls, but sorry, just answer one more question for us. If you consider yourself an R and R Markdown beginner, give a thumbs up with the reaction, or a heart if you're comfortable or very comfortable with R and R Markdown. And let's see what it's looking like. I need to expand this. So a bit of everything. So I hope, I'm not really going to touch on R Markdown today, but I do have some resources in my slides for those who might not feel as comfortable. And then all of my materials are also going to be available after. They're all publicly available already on GitHub. So feel free to come back, review the slides, or even use the material to practice yourself. So today we're going to cover how to get from data to a professional CV using R Markdown. As I said, the workshop materials are freely available, and I hope they should help you get started on your own CV journey. The links are there to the materials on GitHub. And can you see my mouse? Can you see? Yeah, awesome. So you can see that you get the little kind of glove. So a lot of the slides are clickable. So feel free to go through and explore. You can come back to the slides anytime as well. So R Markdown. Again, I love these illustrations. I like that Allison kind of described R Markdown as wizardry, because I agree. I think you can do so many things with R Markdown. And when I started discovering these kind of CV packages, it just kind of, I actually did it not too long ago. And I was just like, okay, I need to sit down and just do this and automate my CV. And it's the best thing I ever did. So I hope you all can join me in that. So meet your new best friends for today. Data-driven CV, the package pagedown, and the package vitae. So data-driven CV was developed by Nick Strayer, and I've put the GitHub repo and package documentation details for all of them, pagedown and vitae. So just a disclaimer, I am assuming a bit of familiarity with R Markdown for this talk. And so as I mentioned, I do have an R Markdown resources on the next slide. And then also the data-driven CV package uses pagedown, and it creates really useful functions that you can import and build your CV. So I won't really go over pagedown specifically in this talk, but just know that it's actually working in the background. And I also just wanted to shout out pagedown because it is an amazing package. You can also use it to generate all kinds of outputs, not just CVs, but also posters, theses, journal articles, letters, you name it. So I've put the documentation there for you to explore more. And just for all of you to know, I did actually go through step-by-step creating a CV in data-driven CV and vitae, so I could provide the demo for you today. And I do think that vitae was easier to use and implement. So if you are a beginner, I would recommend starting with that one. And again, all the materials are available, so feel free to come back to them on your own time, practice, change it with your own data, or just run the documents as they are and see if you can get it to work on your own. And this also includes the debugging steps that I had to go through to actually get data-driven CV to work. So it was a little bit buggy, but I think there's kind of a next version in the works. So this is the slide with some of the R Markdown resources. I would really encourage you, this is a really good start. So for those of you who said you didn't feel that comfortable, check this out and you'll learn a lot about R Markdown with the R Studio resources. All right, let's dive straight in. So let's meet Kate Dibiaski. I don't know how many of you have seen Don't Look Up, but I thought I'd keep a light theme for today. Let's keep it fictional. So Kate Dibiaski, she's the fictional character in the pretty popular Netflix movie Don't Look Up. She's a PhD candidate at Michigan State University, And her claim to fame was a comet discovery. So for those who've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. For those who haven't, she basically discovered that a comet was going to strike Earth and basically kill all of humankind. So this is her CV using the vitae package. So give me a heart if you like this one. Anybody? To expand you guys so I can see. This is the one I personally use, and this template as well. And this is her CV using data-driven CV. Any hearts for data-driven CV? I think it's maybe more popular. I don't know. Maybe someone can correct me. All right. So you kind of saw the end product. And now we're going to backtrack and show you how to make your CV look like that. I think we kind of already did this, but if you prefer the vitae format, put a little party hat. And if you prefer the data-driven, put a heart. And let's see what we've got on the crowd. All right, I think I can see kind of a mix of everything. We'll see how you feel after, after the talk. All right, so we're going to start with the vitae package. So step one, like I said, I'm going to show you how to go from data to CV. So the first thing is to prepare your data. For the vitae package, you can save all your data in one Excel file, and each sheet is going to be a different section of your CV. And some of the common sections include, and of course, this is going to be completely tailored by you. Some of the sections are education, research, teaching, leadership, awards, publications, jobs, whatever is appropriate for your industry. And the example data from today's workshop can be viewed on the GitHub repository if you want to follow along. If not, I've also got the inline code in the slides. So you don't have to, but you're welcome to if you'd like. All right, so to prepare your data, you need to think about the 4 W's. So every section can be built with the same base information. What? So what's your role, or what's the award you received, for example? With who was it? Who was it with? What institute? What institution? What university? What employer? Where, the city or country, that's pretty self-explanatory. And why? What are the details of the role or the award that you received? And really, that's the building blocks of all of the sections in your CV. So this is the example data that you can find on the GitHub, or you can just follow along here. You can see that there's 5 tabs: education, research, industry, leadership, and skills. We have the different variables, so the degree, year, institution, where, details. And for the education section, the what is the degree. And for every section, that can kind of change as well, depending on how you want to tailor it. So here's another example. This is now the research tab. You can see that now the research section, we use the role as the what. And if you want more than 1 bullet point, so for example, when your position description is on your CV and you want 3 bullet points, the way you do that is you just copy the same information on a separate line, but you actually change the details. So we'll actually see this in action, but just keep that in mind.
Shazia, can I ask a quick question if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just on this slide. So is there any best practice on naming the columns, like role has a small r and then institution capital I? Does that matter, or it doesn't matter?
No, so I'll show you how you read that in later, but no, it doesn't.
Okay, sounds good.
And yeah, I should have said at the beginning, if there are any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any point. This is not like a lecture. It's definitely a workshop. So feel free to interrupt me at any time. All right, so once we've prepared our data in our Excel file, we're going to start building our CV in vitae. So first we need to install the package. And if you do follow along with the slides, all of the code chunks, you can copy them. So you can see if you hover over, it allows you to copy the code. And then you can follow along in RStudio if you'd like, or you can just do this later. So first we want to install the packages. And then just a note that this package requires LaTeX to be installed. So if you do find that you're encountering issues when you're installing it, just install the TinyText package and then install, TinyText. So then once we've installed the packages successfully, you can then go in the RStudio IDE, you can create a new R Markdown document. So from the menu, you go to File, New File, R Markdown, and then you get this pop-up window. And then you can go to From Template. And then I've got a bunch of other stuff, but you can see here, everything that says vitae are the templates from that package. And you can see that there are 6 templates. And so you click that and then you open it up in your RStudio. You might be wondering, what are all those templates? So today we're only going to go through the awesome CV template, but the world is your oyster. There are currently 6 templates for you to choose from. So you can take a look at them on the vitae GitHub repository. And there's also, I think there's a lot of people that are kind of creating new templates. There's a whole resource on how to create a new template. So if you're one of those people who are super, super keen, go for it. All right, you're probably all going, well, wasn't this supposed to be super easy? 1-2 knit, how does it actually work? It is 1-2 knit, it is very easy. And I have a little video that I hope works. I might have to rewind it. How do I, let's see. How do I rewind? There we go. All right, so this is essentially, I'm sorry that it's a little bit blurry, but this is essentially the Markdown file that will open up when you open up the Markdown from template. So you can see it's already pre-populated. So it does come with sort of a default template. And I'll just show you, it's really ready to go. You obviously have to edit the content for yourself, but just for the purposes of illustration, it really is as easy as 1-2 knit. And I'll show you in this video. So you can follow, I'm gonna not confuse you with my real mouse. So I just click the knit over here. You can see it going. And then in a couple of seconds, it'll pop up. CV ready, looks great. So we're gonna obviously do this ourselves, but I just wanted to show you how easy it really is. So now that you've seen how easy it, let's create Kate's CV together. All right, so the anatomy of the R Markdown file. So first of all, this is the output. You have this header, which is the main contact information, and that's controlled by the YAML, which I'll show you in the next slide. There's this bio in this specific example, and it's written in R Markdown syntax, and we'll show you that as well. But this is how it prints out. So it looks exactly the same. You can really customize it with R Markdown syntax. And then we have the CV sections. So here, these are specific to this template. There's Nobel Prizes because this is Marie Curie, publications. And then these sections will be tailored to the sections that you want to include. So remember, those are going to be our sheets in the Excel file. And these sections, so back to Sarish's question, these sections are going to be built with these 2 functions, the detailed entries or the brief entries, and we'll go over those as well. So let's start with the YAML header. So to change the content, first, before we change the content, let's go through. Hello? Does anyone have a question?
I think you found to go ahead, Shazia.
Yeah, all right. So first, let's go through what the YAML is actually outputting once we've got the document. So this is the header. So for those who are not familiar with R Markdown, this is sort of the first part of your document, and it controls sort of the formatting of everything. And it'll make more sense when you kind of go through some of those R Markdown resources. But for the purposes of the CV, all you really need to know is what these different lines actually print out to. So it's here we can see that the YAML, everything in the YAML is actually printed out in this header section. The another important, not important tip, but just a tip. If you don't like this sort of thin and bold, which I didn't like personally, you can just put Marie Curie in the name and just not put anything for surname. So you can do little things like that once you get comfortable with the package. And also there's some built-in kind of contact icon already. So for example, email here, you can see, maybe you can't see, but it comes up with a little envelope. And so then you don't even have to worry about the icons. They're kind of already built into the template, or to the package, I mean. All right, so now let's change the content together. So first we're going to change the YAML. So now I've changed this to Kate's CV. So we've got Kate Dibiaski, PhD candidate, School of Astronomy, et cetera, don't look up film because this is obviously not real. And then I've just put the repository where we're working from. And a tip here is for those who maybe are not so familiar with R Markdown, you can use the hash to comment out anything that you don't want in your header. So for example, I didn't want to include phone number or website, and I just put a hash in front of it, and you'll see in the output that it doesn't come out. So only the things that are not hashed are printed in the header. So now we can see that we've changed this now to Kate's CV. We can see PhD candidate, School of Astronomy, and then some of the other contact info that we put. What if you want to add a profile pic? So the way you do that is literally profile pic, and then you just give it the file path. So the way I've set up this project, there's an image folder where all of the images sort of for your CV can be kept. You don't have to do it that way. That's just the way I did it for this example. And again, you can copy this code if you'd like. I just keep reminding you that if you want to follow along. So now that we've done the profile pic, what does it look like? And now we've got Kate's photo. So for those who do want a photo in their CV, it's really easy to add it to the template. And now, what about if you want like a mini bio? Obviously, this template kind of has some stuff about me, but what if you don't want it to be so big? There's also an about me section in the YAML. So it's just about me. And then you can put in text in quotes for whatever you want to appear in sort of your kind of tagline. And so this is what it looks like once it's rendered. You can see now, for those who know the movie, I hope you find this funny. For those who haven't watched the movie, it's just fake. But yeah, so she recently discovered the comet that's going to strike Earth in 6 months and 14 days. So that's sort of some of the basic stuff you can do with the YAML. You can customize it how you want. Some other tips that might not be in the template, you can also include things like OrcID or Google Scholar in your YAML if you want to. And then I also mentioned this before, but if you want just sort of a light name or not just a bold name, you can put your full name in either of those YAML options. And I'm not going to get into CSS customization at all today, but I just wanted to mention that you can change the accent color. And by the accent color, I mean this sort of red, the red color. You can change that if you want by playing around with the CLS document. That's also part of your CV files. And there's line, yes.
Sorry, I think Greta wants to ask a question. She has a hand raised. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, sorry. I actually can't see that. So please just let me know.
Yeah, so I was just asking, like, if you go to the previous slide, can we totally get rid of the about me section just before this one? So
yeah, you can.
Some stuff about me in the template. Can that also be removed?
Do you mean this one, this line here?
No, this, not this one, like maybe the next.
Oh, the stuff about me, this one?
Yeah, this part, like, or is it the template is set that way?
Yeah, no, I mean, you can edit the whole template. And like I said before, if you use the hash, sorry, you need to comment it. You need to comment it out differently. And I do talk about that in a future slide. So let me know if it's still unclear after that.
Sure, no problem. Okay.
Thank you for your question. So yes, just getting back to the color. If you're super keen on customization, you can change, you can add defined colors. So I've just given you the prompt there. You can look from line 122. And then a nice tip that I wish I remembered where I saw it. because I wanted to credit it, but I just couldn't. But anyways, if you want to remove the accent color altogether, which is what I wanted to do, you can include this following line or parameter in your YAML, and then it's basically the same color as the sort of black, dark gray. All right. So now that we kind of understand what the YAML looks like, now let's load our CV data. And so as we had done before, we have our Excel file so that we can update the content of each section with our sheets. And I wrote a simple function that's called read Excel sheets that it's very simple. It just reads all the sheets in your Excel file and it saves them as individual data frames for each of your CV sections. And then the data frames will have the name of your sheet name. So this makes it super easy to load your data. I've put the function here below. Feel free to use it in your own CV if you'd like. And if you are going to use it, just make sure that you've installed the Read Excel package. And again, you can copy the code here directly if you want. You can also look at the materials from the CV, from Kate's CV, if you want to see it in action. All right, so let's load our Excel file so that we can update each section. We can apply the function to our file. So what you need to do is just give it the file name of where your Excel file is. So here I've used the here package. And if you don't know what that means, I would recommend you read about it. It's amazing, but don't worry too much if you don't know what that means. All you need to know is that here you need to put the file path of where your Excel file is located. And then you can run the function read Excel sheets file name. And here you'll kind of see what that looks like. I'll move the video. So this is going to result, as I said, in a data frame for each sheet. So remember our sheet from before, we had the 5 tabs or the 5 sheets. And when we run the read Excel sheets function, we now get these 5 data frames. So we have education, industry, leadership, research, and skills. And of course, that's going to be completely dependent on how you tailor your CV and which sections you want to have, how many, etc. All right, so this is now Sarish's question. How do we actually create one of the CV sections? So let's just create the education section as an example. And I mentioned briefly before that there's sort of 2 functions that we're going to use to build the CV sections. One of them is this brief entries. I actually can't highlight it. The brief entries here, and just remember the W's. So for the brief entries, all we need to give it is what, when, and with. And we don't have to give it all of that. If you just want to give what, then it'll print out and you can kind of play with the formatting as you'd like. For more detailed entries where you might want sort of details or bullet points, you can use this detailed entries. You give it your data, and then the what, when, with, where, and why. And I should mention, I should have put this as a tip, but the protect equals true. If you look down here, it actually protects it from being parsed as LaTeX code. So if you actually want to edit the text in your Excel file to print a certain way in R Markdown, you just need to use the protect equals true. All right, so let's create our education section. So the default code in the template, so this is the question we had before as well. This is kind of what it's going to look like. And I just wanted to give, to also just let you know that there is also an option in the default template to create the data frame or tribble directly in your script. So here you can see that we're building this tribble, which is the education, which is equivalent to our education data frame with degree, year, institution, and where. And then with that, they're then just printing out the detailed entries.
Shazia, there is a question in the chat from Nathan. Does the order matter?
Yes. So in your CV, in your actual Markdown document, the order that you put your sections is how they're going to appear in your actual document. Thanks for your question. And so yes, you do have this option if you don't want to use the Excel option. This is not my personal preference, but this might suit someone else. So I've also seen when I was looking through the package, there's some people who also have separate R scripts that basically build all of their tibbles, and then they source that script into the Markdown document. So you can do things like that as well if that's your preference. So anyways, if you're still with me with our example, we now have our education data frame that we can pipe with detailed entries. So what's our code going to look like? This is what our education data frame looks like. And this came directly from the Excel document that I showed you earlier. We have degree, year, institution, where, and details. So to create the CV section, we're going to do education, pipe, which means we're going to do detailed entries on the education data frame. And then, Sarish, to your question, you can tell it what equals, and then this can be whatever you label the variable that you want to be the what, if that makes sense. So if I had a capital G and a capital G, it doesn't matter how you label them, as long as you tell when you run the function, you tell it what is what.
Okay.
So here you can see that the what in this instance is degree, the when is pretty self-explanatory, where, etc. And the why are the details, which are the bullet points that we're going to see. So if we ran this, the output looks like this. So now we have our YAML that we've modified for Kate, and now we have her education. So now you can see that we've got the institution here, we've got the sort of the degree, and this is the why, so the details. And remember, because we had 2 lines in the Excel file, they now print out as 2 bullet points. And then we've got the where and the dates or the year. And you can switch those around. So for example, if you wanted PhD candidate to be in the bold, you would just put it as the, let's go back. So instead of with being institution, you would put with equals degree, and then you would get a bold, the PhD candidate would be the bold title. And then Michigan State University would be kind of the all caps. So it really depends on how you like your CV to look, but it gives you a lot of flexibility with how you want to format it. And you don't have to include everything. So if you didn't want to include the location, for example, you just don't include it, and then you just have the years. So it's all up to you.
Shazia, one more question. Can we add a CGPA thing? Where will it get printed? Nitin is
Can we add a? Sorry, can we add a?
Can we add a CGPA thing, for example? Where will it get printed?
A CGPA. I don't even know what that is.
I think they're trying to say
it's a GPA, like an additional field.
Yeah, additional field through this vitae template.
Like another section?
Yes. Maybe like
I think another entry.
Oh, sorry. GPA, like marks. Yeah. So let's say you want to put CGPA. Sorry that I didn't understand your question. So if you want to put CGPA as a second bullet point, what you need to do, let's just go back to the education just to illustrate. So this bachelor's in science only has 1 line and 1 line of details. So if you wanted to add CGPA as a bullet point, you would basically copy the row, but then just change the details. And so then you'd put CGPA here, and then in your output, you would get 2 bullet points. Did that answer your question? I'm going to assume silence is a yes.
Yeah.
All right. So what about publications? This was something that I found kind of, interesting. I did a lot of repo diving, as someone called it on Twitter the other day, just to kind of see how different people formatted it. I'm going to tell you about all the different options that you have to print out your publications on your CV. So the data that it expects is a BibTeX file. So you can download your bib file from your favorite reference manager. It doesn't matter which one really, as long as you have a file with the BibTeX extension. And then you use the vitae bibliography entries function to print out the publications in your CV. And it just takes the BibTeX file as the parameter. So this is what the code would look like. You can find the demo bib file that I just put for this CV if you click on that link. Basically, it's just one fake paper that I made up for Kate. But this is how we would call how we would print the publications. And again, if you don't know what the here package is, don't worry. You just need to put the file path as the parameter. All right, so if we were to run this, what would it look like? So this is what the publications print out. So you've got the title publications, and they print out in a numbered list. And then you've got the authors, the year, the sort of title, and the journal. So Kate published in Nature. We can all be envious. And that was accepted recently. And then, so I wasn't a huge fan of the publication, the way it printed out, just because I'm very OCD. And I kind of wanted to have a list by year. And so what I ended up doing for my own CV was using R Markdown and LaTeX. So that there's also, you can do that with any section really in your CV. It understands both R Markdown and LaTeX syntax. So yep, I've already said all of that. You can use the LaTeX commands directly in your file, for example, for formatting. So I've just given an example here. This is actually how I did mine. And what I did here was use the LaTeX command to basically say no tabs. And then here I put the year. And then for all the publications, I did a 1 centimeter tab so that they kind of line up really nicely. But I obviously had to, oops, sorry. Oh, where did I go? All right, sorry. But obviously you have to do that manually. So if you have like 150 publications, I don't think this is going to be your cup of tea, but it's just to give you more idea of the things that you can do. So if we were to run this code, this is what the output looks like. And it obviously looks weird here because I was just trying to illustrate a point that you can do different R Markdown syntax. So this is one of the headings by using the hashes. And then here you can see the list. And so if you wanted to then have 2021, it would sort of be on the left margin, and then all the publications would be sort of tab indented. Up to you, but just to say that there's lots of ways that you can customize this to your liking.
Question from Nitin in the chat. So they are asking, can we use our data from Google Scholar?
Yes, you can. I don't have time to go over everything, but I do have the resources on another slide. And there's some slides as well from the package creators, Mitchell O'Hara Wild and Rob Hinman. And they went through some of that. So you can also do it with OrcID and also with Google Scholar. So I'm not going through that today, but I do have the links in there. So that is to say, you can also do that if you want to retrieve your publications with those packages as well. So yes, just reiterating, you can use R Markdown syntax. And I also wanted to just flag that you can also use R Markdown syntax and LaTeX in your Excel file. So if you want certain things to print a certain way in your CV, so I'll just give an example. If you want your postdoc position and position description, so the bullet points, you actually want to have a hyperlink to one of your papers. If you put that directly in your Excel file, it'll print out as you expect it to print out in R Markdown. So this is just an example of how you would add a hyperlink, and you would have that directly in your Excel file. You can also use the LaTeX commands, as I said before, and this is just another example, but you can use the new page if you wanted to sort of format your sections differently. I know I had to do that a bit with my CV when I didn't want something to kind of overflow onto the next page. You just, it's analogous to like a Word document page break. So you can do that as well if you want to kind of reorder the way things look or have certain things start on different pages. All right. Obviously, this isn't exhaustive, but it's just to give you an intro of how you can sort of get your CV up and running pretty quickly. So once you finish editing the Markdown file, don't forget to knit. So I showed you that video before. It literally is as simple as clicking knit. And then the beautiful thing is both your HTML and your PDF files will be built automatically when you knit. So you technically at this stage would be done. You'd have a minimum CV. And then obviously, depending on how OCD you are, if you're like me, you'd then probably spend another week formatting things, but by no means do you have to. You've kind of already got your CV there. So this is our sort of final product of what we've done. I've obviously gone ahead and done the other sections. I didn't even really fill them in. They're just kind of dummy text, but just to illustrate how that final PDF would look. So you can click here to look at the R Markdown file if you want to explore it. And if you wanted to download the PDF, you can just click on the link there. All right. So just some more tips and resources. Thanks for that question before. Definitely check out the vitae's package creators presentation on the actual package. They've covered some other ground that I won't cover today, which is, for example, how to use the packages OrcID or Google Scholar to import your education, experience, publication, whatever you have on those profiles. And you can use that to kind of generate your data as well. So it's another option. And the slides are available here. I've linked them for you. I also found a YouTube video that goes through kind of how to make, oh, whoops, sorry, that's in the wrong, it's in the wrong package. But anyways, it would still be, it'll still be useful for the next part of this presentation for data-driven CV. And then the vitae GitHub page also has lots of examples of vitae in the wild. So you can, if you want to check out other people's, CVs for inspo, there's a list of people who have kind of linked their CVs. And if you want to do that as well, there's also a way, I think you just create an issue or something. But definitely if you're proud of your CV and you want to share it with the world, or you want to inspire others, definitely share it on there as well. I know I looked at all of them when I was starting to build mine, just to see what other kinds of things you could do. And lots of people have come up with kind of different things as well. All right, so I thought we'd take a pause because I haven't really been able to look at the chat. And if there are any questions or anyone wants to raise their hand, I might just skim the chat really quickly.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions, Shazia.
Do you want to read them out to me, maybe?
Sure can. So does it save automatically, or do we need to save the document file and after that it will compile? So what?
Yeah, you do. So you do need to actually like physically save, like Command S, and then so you do need to save it.
Save then knit. Then a bit of a sidestep from CVs, but what did you use to make the interactive tools in your presentation slides?
I do credit it in the end. I used I'm going to say that incorrectly, so I apologize. The Zeringen package, and then a few of the other kind of extras. I've linked all of the stuff. And you can also, if you're interested, you can also look at the R Markdown of the slides on my GitHub as well, if you want to see how it was made.
So we can put a link to the R Markdown file maybe, so people are if they're interested in exploring Zeringen later. Are there any formatting issues with the scrapers that recruiters use? I have heard that some elements in Word CVs can cause the scrapers to not read them properly.
That's a really interesting question. I really have no idea. I guess if someone, I don't know, maybe someone from the audience knows more, but I assume that if it's a PDF file, the same issues that any PDF CV file would presumably have as well. But I really have no idea. So I'd be speaking way out of line.
How different are R Markdown and LaTeX created CVs? How different can they be?
I'm not really sure I understand the question. So how different do you mean like if you use R Markdown and LaTeX syntax in your CV file?
Might get a clarification on that question. I suppose, maybe using it in R Markdown, or can you create LaTeX only or CVs?
Oh, sorry. Yep.
I think to add on that, so vitae package, the background template is LaTeX, but it uses R Markdown at the to generate the entire PDF with the LaTeX template. So I hope that clarifies a bit. And also in LaTeX, you need to manually type in everything, where in this R Markdown environment, you can use a function to load in the information you want.
Yeah, awesome, thanks. And then we've just got some very, Ilaria says awesome slides. And so well done. So I'll see if I can, we'll share the link of your R Markdown to create the slides.
Awesome. All right. So we'll keep going.
We've got one last question. Sorry, Shazia. The fact that both LaTeX and R Markdown are types of markup languages, I'd assume they are less break prone than Microsoft Word's own semantic syntactic divide.
Sounds reasonable. Way out of what I would know, but I would think, I don't know. Does anyone work in the crowd?
I'm sure there's a lot of information online as well about that too.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next package. So I'm just reminding you what the data-driven CV looked like. So let's switch our brains. Now we've got Kate's CV using a different package, the data-driven CV package. It's almost like let's start over, because you now have to prepare your data in Google Sheets. Well, the recommendation is to prepare your data in Google Sheets. And so I've linked here the Google Sheets that I made for this workshop, and feel free to download it, download it and modify it, or just download it to kind of run it yourself. There's also, if you go to the data-driven CV GitHub repository, you can also download Nick Strayer, who's the creator of the package. You can download his Google Sheets and then kind of modify it yourself. And his is obviously way more comprehensive than the dummy one I did for today. So feel free to do that as well if you want kind of a starting point for your own CV. It's a little bit different than the Excel file we prepared for vitae, but it's kind of the same base concept, actually. We still kind of have the 4 W's if you'd like. So this is what the Google Sheets doc looks like. You have the section variable where you define the different sections in your CV. So you have education, research positions, industry, teaching, awards, whatever is relevant to you. The title, which could be what we were calling role before, or degree, and the location, that's self-explanatory, institution, the dates. And then here, instead of doing the sort of multiple lines for the bullets, you do multiple columns. So for example, here you have 1 bullet point, another bullet point, and if you wanted 10 bullet points, you just create, description _, up to 10. And that's kind of how you build the data. These are, and then there's sort of 4 sheets in the Google Sheets file. So the first one that I just showed you is the entries, and these are sort of the variables that we just discussed. The next one is language skills. And this can obviously be, it depends on what that means to you. It can be programming languages, it can be, it's any skills really. So all you need is a column, a variable skill, and then a level. And the level has to be relative to, it has to be a number. So then they actually show really nice progress bars, which we'll look at in more detail later. And here you can include skills, that are relevant to your industry, if that's programming, if it's spoken languages, laboratory skills, whatever it is, you can kind of customize that. The next sheet in that file is the text blocks. And here what you need is basically it's where you want to have different text. So if you have sort of an intro kind of bio, you can put that in the text block. There's also The sort of structure of the CV has the margin on the right. So you can kind of also include text on the right for certain things. And I'll illustrate all of these in more detail later. And then finally, you have the contact info, which is kind of similar to the YAML, where you kind of, you give it an icon if you want it to have an icon, and then the contact info that's relevant to you. So your email, your GitHub, your Twitter, etc. So some tips on the Google Sheets, because I made some of these mistakes myself when I was doing this. Make sure that your Google Sheets document is not actually in Excel. So that this can happen if you do import an Excel document to Google. And then also make sure that your Google Sheets is public and that you actually share the link with anyone with the editor option, or else R won't actually be able to pull in the data. And whoops, sorry, that came up a bit big, but you can kind of see here, anyone with the link and editor. So you want to have that enabled so that data-driven-CV can actually read it in. All right, so let's start building our CV. So the first thing we want to do is install the package as we did for vitae. I actually got an error when I tried to download it. So you can also download the development version and just make sure that you install the DevTools package. So there's the code there. And I'll just remind you that you can copy all of the code on these slides if you want to kind of work along yourself as well. With my version of R, I also got an error. It didn't actually let me install the package. I had to install a specific version of the icons package. And there was actually a GitHub issue that was my exact issue. So I've linked it here because if in case this is updated at a later date, it might be completely unnecessary. So that way you can kind of track what's going on with that. And to install this version of the icons package, you need to make sure that you have the remotes package, and then you can install it. All right, so now that we've installed the package, we can start building our CV. We first load the library, and then it's very, very simple. So you just need to use the use data-driven CV function to create your CV R Markdown file. And this is what that looks like. So you have your full name, which obviously we were using Kate for this example, the data location, which is your Google Sheets link, the PDF location where you want your PDF to be, same with HTML, and then the source location, which is where the source code for your CV is. All right, so once you run that, it's slightly different to vitae. So if you remember before with vitae, you opened up a new R Markdown from template. Here you need to run that function, and then it compiles all of the files that you need for your CV. And so once you run that, you now see 5 files in your directory. So you have the CV R Markdown file, which is the one that we're gonna customize for Kate. The CSS file, which is again not something I'm going to touch on today, but you can always fiddle around with the color and styling as you please. In the case of data-driven CV, there also is a script called render CV, and when you run that script, it then saves out. It builds your CV in both HTML and PDF, and then you basically have a rendered version of your CV. And finally, there's also the CV printing functions, which is the script that holds all of the functions for the package. Any questions so far? I can kind of see some stuff in the. All right, do any questions? All right, so let's do our little kind of anatomy of the CV R Markdown again. So the first thing that you see when you open up the Markdown file is this aside. And I've obviously removed a lot of the stuff under it just to kind of illustrate what it looks like. So the aside includes the contact, language skills, and disclaimer. And so obviously this will depend on what you want to have in your CV. I'm assuming that you'll want to have contact so that all of this aside appears in this kind of right margin. So you have here the contact and then the language skills, and you can see the progress bars that I was mentioning before. So depending on what you put into your Google Sheets doc, it'll show you as expert in R, but then, you know, intermediate JavaScript, etc. So you can use that to really showcase your skills. I really like that, actually, that feature. It's really nice. And then the disclaimer I'll show a bit later, and it appears a bit lower in the CV. The next part of the CV, our Markdown file, is this main section. So, and it looks like this, and they're all separated by these sort of equal signs that make a line. And here what we have are all the CV sections that are in the template file. So they're not necessarily going to be in your file. And so, for example, there's education, research experience, industry experience, teaching, etc., as you can see. And you need to modify those sections according to what you want to have in your CV. If you don't want to have two separate press, then you only have one. And again, similar to the vitae, you need to just comment it out or just delete the lines altogether. And if they're not in your Google Sheet, it won't actually render. So make sure that you do comment them out. And then finally, inside the main, there's also these other sort of asides. So for example, if we look at the industry experience, there's also these asides here. And that refers, again, to the text blocks that I was describing before. So if you wanted to have your industry experience, and let's pretend that it's the research experience. So you've got all your positions, but then you also want to have a little paragraph that says, my industry experience is the best, and I have over 20 years of experience, and you kind of want a summary, and that will appear on the right margin. So if you want to have that kind of stuff, you just put it inside of this aside. All right, any questions so far in the chat? Don't think so. All right, so at this stage, remember, we haven't actually knit anything. So the final checks that you have to do, and this was kind of trial and error by me when I was trying to build it. So I have a feeling that a lot of these things will change probably with a next version of the package. But anyways, similar to the vitae package, you can also include a profile pic if you want. The default is this network logo that's built by Nick Strayer, who wrote the package. It's actually really cool. I didn't actually realize what it was until I actually read the comments in the R Markdown file. I thought it was just a nice network, but it's actually a network of all of the different positions in your CV, and they're sort of linked by year and then colored by whether they're education, research, whatever. Had no idea until I built these slides. So pretty cool. But in the case of Kate, we want to have her photo in the CV. So in this part where we see this in the R Markdown, we're going to change it to include the photo of Kate. And then the other check that we're going to do is make sure that we comment out any of the sections that we don't want. So I think we had a question about this before. So to comment out code in HTML, you need to use this sort of comment symbols in between the code lines. And so this, for example, this teaching experience, it's all commented out now. So if we render this R Markdown, the teaching experience will not appear either in HTML or PDF. And just a tip, you can use, you can highlight several lines and then you go to File, Code, and then there's a command to say comment or uncomment lines, and then you can do it all at once versus doing one by one. Or you can also use Shift Command C to comment out several lines at once. The next thing you want to check before you render is actually to change the source code. So remember the disclaimer we talked about before. The disclaimer by default comes with the source code of the actual CV package. So if you can either remove this altogether, or you can remove the code line completely if you don't want to give source code, or you can just update it to the source. Oh, sorry. And that's what, oh. Let's see, there we go. That's what I've done for ours. I've just put the source code of this repository. And so what does the output look like for the disclaimer? It's obviously a huge close-up of that right margin of the CV document, but this is what it prints out, made with the R package pagedown. The source code is available on GitHub, and I just linked that to the repo for this workshop. And then it also gives a last updated. So I've seen a lot of people keep that on there. I think it's quite nice. It shows off your R skills for sure, just to say your CV is made in R. And I like that it's also automatically tells you when it's last updated. That's pretty cool as well. And so then the final check that you need to do, and this is a bug that might get fixed in future, but I had to still do it this time. You need to manually edit one of the lines in the CV printing function's R script, and that's because one of the functions was updated in the new Google Sheets 4 package. There's also a GitHub issue on this, so I've linked it there so that you can keep track of what's happening in case it gets fixed in future, and this is completely meaningless. But for now, at least as of this week, you need to edit line 32 in the CV printing functions R script from this function to this other function. And once you've done all of those final checks, you're ready to knit. So similar to how we did the vitae, you can knit the document and then it pops up like this. I didn't do another video this time. I think you get the idea. But this is kind of the classic RStudio pop-up of the HTML. But remember before I mentioned that there's a render CV script. And so you need to run that. Well, you don't need to run that script, but you can run that script if you want to generate both HTML and PDF. So this is code from the render CV R script. And you can either run it with the button that says run, you can highlight all the code and run, however you want to do it. And you can also change the output file names here if you want. So if you want your HTML file to not just be CV, but be Kate CV and Kate PDF, then you can change it there on those two lines. Are there any questions in the chat?
We just have one very recent. Is there a way to combine both vitae and data-driven methodology to generate packages? For example, I like the format of vitae, but I like the import of data from Google Sheets and icons used in data-driven. It would be nice to combine the two to generate both HTML and PDF for vitae as well. Any thoughts?
I mean, not any particular thoughts from me. But I think definitely look into, I would look into the source code, to be honest. I don't know how complicated the functions would be, but if you want to, I don't know, create a branch and see if it works, that would be a good service to the community. But yeah, I guess the Google Sheets option, the Google Sheets being an option for vitae probably wouldn't be too hard, I think. I obviously did not develop the package, but worth taking a look to give another option for sort of importing. Oh.
One more question. How do you deal with versioning with Google Sheets for this? Are you able to bring it into Git?
Good question. And I don't think there is a version saved. Because I think it just pulls it in and then renders. I don't think it actually saves the Google Sheet ever in your repository. So I don't think there would be kind of but Google Sheets in and of itself has version control, right? Does anybody who maybe is more familiar with data-driven CV have any comments? All right, maybe not. Okay, I think we're almost to the end of creating. Oh, and voila. Then we've rendered our CV. So this is what the data-driven CV looks like. It's really nice. I think it's, I've seen a lot of people use it, and I really like the language skills. The timeline idea is quite cool as well. So it's really up to you and what you like. I've linked here the R Markdown file, so you can take a look at what we did today and what generates this, and then you can also download the CV that we made in data-driven CV. Some other resources. I found a few blog posts, and the video that I wrongly linked in vitae, apologies, should be in data-driven CV. And there's a few blog posts also that take you through this scientificity, apologies. In this blog post, they do go through the ORCID and the Google Scholar as well. So for those who are interested, you might want to look at that as well. And of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. I just pulled together kind of things I came across. So just to recap, for vitae, you prepare your data in Excel. You load your CV data, and then if you want to, you can use the read Excel sheets function that then saves them all into data frames. You then modify your R Markdown to suit, your needs, your industry, what sections you want. You might even want to tailor a CV for, different job applications, depending on, what the target is. And then you do magic with the detailed entries. The recap of data-driven CV, you prepare your data in Google Sheets. You can also, I should have said, you can also do it in CSV, but the recommendation really is the Google Sheets. And likewise for vitae, you can also do individual CSVs for every section if you'd like, but it's completely up to you. In the case of data-driven CV, you load the CV data, and then you use the data-driven CV function. You then modify your Markdown, and then you render with the render CV R script. So I hope you agree with me that it is really easy as one to knit. I did want to just give acknowledgements, of course, to all of the creators of the packages. They're awesome, and I think the entire community is very thankful. For those who asked before, these slides were created using all of these different R packages, and I also used the R Ladies theme for Zeringan. So that was really cool that I came across that. So thanks. I think Allison Hill was the one who developed that. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, and please get in touch if you have any questions. I'm here also for questions. All of the slides and workshop materials are freely available. So do go back to them and do it yourself. And I wish you luck on your CV journey, and share with us if you do it. We'd love to retweet it if you have Twitter, or share it on our GitHub or whatever. So thanks everyone for your attention. And yeah, we'll take questions if there are any.
Fantastic presentation, Shazia. Thank you so much for putting that all together. I think the chat speaks for itself to say everyone loved it. But does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask Shazia in person?
I might stop share.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finally look at the chat.
I think it was a great way to show how easily you can update your CV without having to get too bogged down with formatting. So I think